You know why they call them walking bass lines? Hello, my dear friends and neighbors. Welcome back to the Brownstone. Today is the second in our little series all about walking bass lines. In the last video, I gave you a pretty simple introduction into how to form your own walking bass lines by approaching each of the root notes of the 3 chords involved in a 12-bar blues progression. In a 12-bar blues, in the key of C, we've got C7, which moves up to the 4 chord, F7. And then the final chord is the 5 chord, which is going to be G7. So these chords involve scales, major scales, where the 7th note of the scale is a minor 7th. If you don't know what that means, it's okay. If you do, good on you. But for this particular lesson, I just want to focus on the root note and the 3rd note of the scale or chord, right? So if I'm dealing with C7, there's my scale. The 3rd note of that scale is an E. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I want you to pay attention to something very, very important. When I play the root and E, the 3rd, it creates a particular formation on the fingerboard. And you can remember that formation because it will apply to all 3 of the root notes of our 3 chords. So here I have C at the 3rd fret of the A string. My 3rd is going to be the note E at the 2nd fret of the D string. So what happens is with my 2nd finger, I play the root note, and with my 1st finger, 1 fret back on the next string down, I play my 3rd. That creates a particular formation. It's kind of like a ramp, right? So I do that on the note C. C up to the 3rd. If I go up to the 4 chord, the 4 chord is F at the 3rd fret of the D string. If I apply that same pattern, I get the 3rd, which in this case is the note A. If I take that formation and move it up 2 frets, then I'm on the 5 chord, the 3rd chord of our 12-bar blues progression. Here I have the note G, and then my 3rd is going to be the note B. So we have our 3 patterns, right? Now, how does this apply to a bass line? Well, we'll start very simply by splitting the bar and playing 2 notes on the root note and then 2 notes on the 3rd. Now that you know the formation, all you have to do is apply that formation to our 3 root notes, the C, the F, and the G. Now what we'll do to start off, just as a refresher, is we'll play 4 notes on the root notes, 4 quarter notes on the root notes of each of these chords. In other words, when I'm playing through the 12-bar progression, I'm just going to play the root notes, 4 quarter notes, just like this. You can play along, or you can just listen and really get a sense of the sound of the progression that we are going to explore, right? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to the 4 chord, F. Back to C. Our 1 chord. Back up to the 4 chord for 2 bars. 2, 2, 3, 4. Back to the 1 chord for 2 bars. 2. To the 5 chord, G. Down to the 4 chord, F. Back to the 1 chord for 2 bars. And that's the end of the progression. So now that we have established the sound of the chord progression, what I now want to do is apply this idea of moving from the root to the 3rd. We're going to play 2 times on each note. 2 times on the root note, 2 times on the third. Starting from each note of the chord. Here's my 1 chord from the root to the third. Here's my 4 chord from the root to the third. Here's my 5 chord from the root to the third. What are those notes? C up to E, F up to A, and then G up to B. You can see where my first and second fingers are playing, and the formation of my first and second finger does not change. So even if you don't know the notes, it's easy to understand the formation. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now what we'll do is we'll take this formation through the 12-bar blues progression in the same way that we did before, but now instead of playing 4 quarter notes just on the root note, we're going to play 2 notes on the root and 2 notes on the third. What does that sound like? It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. Up to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord for 2 bars. Up to the 4 chord, 2 bars. Back to the 1 chord. Making sense? Now up to the 5 chord, the G. G, up to B, back to the 4 chord, F to the A, and then back to the 1 chord, C to E. I'll play that again. Here we go, from the beginning. Top to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, up to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, up to the 5 chord, G, back to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord for 2 bars, and end. It's that simple. Now there's a very particular reason as to why I'm focusing on that specific movement from the root to the third. And it's a reason that a lot of bass players, whether they're beginners or whether they're seasoned professionals, we tend to forget about this very simple idea. If I'm moving from the root to the third, and in this particular case going from C to the E, well, check it out. That E can also be played the octave down. And when I do that, I get a different sound, but it's the same note. So now I want to take note of that movement. I want to understand the shape that's being created by that particular movement and the sound that's being created by this inversion of the interval. Here I'm going up to the third. Here I'm going down to the third by playing the open E. Hear the difference? I'm going up to the E, and now I'm going down to the open E. Just practice that for a little while until you really get it and understand what's going on. Because when it comes to playing root to third, there's more than one way. So now if we examine what's going on with that particular movement, we can also examine what's going on when we move this idea through the 3 chords of our 12-bar blues. So if I start on C, my 2 notes are C to E. And I've already explained that if I can play the if I can play the E here at the 2nd fret of the D string, I can also play the octave as the low E, right? So when I move up to the 4 chord, I can do the same thing. If I move from that F, which is the root of the 4 chord, and go up to the 3rd of the 4 chord, that's an A. But check it out. That A can also be played as an open A string. The other thing is, I can also play the F there at the root. And if I have the open A, that means I can play the 5th fret of the E string, which creates a very particular shape. So now I know that to be another formation of moving from the root to the major third. I can go up to the A, I can go down to the open A, and I can go down to the A at the 5th fret of the E string. Same thing for the 5 chord. When I move up to the G at the 5th fret of the D string, going from the root to the 3rd, my 3rd is going to be the note B at the 4th fret of the G string, and I can take that B down the octave to the 2nd fret of the A string. Right? So this is the thing that I really wanted to get across today in this lesson. I'm not going to go beyond this because getting used to the idea of playing the different octaves can give you more options when it comes to playing and creating your own walking bass lines. But that doesn't stop there, because remember, in the last video, we also recognized the different places that we can play our root notes, especially when it comes to the 4 chord and the 5 chord. Because if I can play the 1 chord here and move up to the 4 chord, which is F, we can remember the fact that we have an F at the 1st fret of the E string. So this is a viable option when creating a walking bass line. Same thing when I move to the 5 chord. I'm playing a G. Where do we have another G? It's at the 3rd fret of the E string. Right? So now we have more options. This is why I just wanted to focus on that movement from the root to the 3rd. Because by focusing on just that, we can really get a sense of what options are available to us without it being too overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? So if I just play a walking bass line, moving from the root to the 3rd with 2 notes on the root and 2 notes on the 3rd, and then recognize that I have different options as far as my octaves are concerned, then I can really construct a line that is melodic and outlines the harmony in a beautiful way. And this is only the beginning of really putting together interesting lines that have variation in the movement and real sort of melodic creativity, and a real sense of improvisation, because you're choosing your own adventure depending on which octave you decide to play. Let me demonstrate that. 2, 3. I'm just going to play root to the 3rd in the first way that we demonstrated. This will give you a sense of the harmony. And then the second time through this form, I'm going to switch up my options a little bit. 5 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord. Now check it out. I'm going to do the same thing, but this time more options. Does that make sense? I hope so. So I hope you recognize what I was doing there. All I'm doing is playing 2 notes on the root and then 2 notes on the 3rd. But I'm also choosing which octave to play any of those notes. And I can vary them and play the exercise differently every single time because when it comes to recognizing where my roots are and where my thirds are, I've got a lot of different options to choose from. So I want you to work just with that, because the next stage of the game would be to apply the rules that we talked about in the previous lesson and add them to this. So then we're using the idea of approaching each of our root notes, but also adding the third of each chord. It's going to be super interesting. I will demonstrate that in the next video, but for now, I just want you to work with moving from the root to the third. That's it. That's all. I'm going to leave it there, friends and neighbors. Hey, listen, if you like this video, do me a huge favor. Just click like. It does mean a lot, and it really does help the video to move out to a wider audience. Join the channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you are in a position to help with bringing these videos to you. There are different options that will allow for you to donate to the channel. And of course, all of the above is greatly, greatly appreciated. I cannot express the extent of my gratitude to all of you for being here. It is a wonderful thing, and the channel is growing, and I am so glad when I see in the comments section that that these videos are helping people out. That's all I want to do here at the Brownstone. So I'm going to leave it there. I thank you so much for visiting me here once again, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Peace.